Hey guys, Target here and welcome to another episode of Design and Manage, a City Skylines and Modded Let's Play series. On the last video we have built this road layout, the road layout for the mountain town that we are going to build. And today we are going to continue this project. Now that the whole road infrastructure is complete, we can start adding a few buildings to it and expand our population a bit further. Stay tuned for that. Okay guys, so just as I've mentioned on the previous episode, I believe I want to turn this valley area over here between the two hills into the densest part of the village. This is where the majority of buildings are going to be located, and then we are trying to gradually decrease the density as we move far away from the center area. So I might zone a few houses in these rows over here that you see, over the hill and also on this area over here as well. But I'm not going to turn them into very dense clusters. Also, something very important that I didn't do on the last episode is actually name this little town, or this district, and I am going to name it the New Tadima Hills. There we go, just to add a bit of personality and of character to this area. And now we can start zoning. As you've seen, I have disabled these buildings as they are not being used yet. But for now I'm just going to pause the simulation and I'm just going to plan out how I want this zoning to look like. Okay, so this road over here, it's the main connection to the city itself. It's the one that connects to this roundabout and eventually connects to this part of the city and to this little roundabout that gives access to the industrial layout. So I think I'm going to put commercial in this area because it's going to be an area of very high movement. And I might do the same in this road over here on the slope and also on this segment of road as well. So I'm thinking all of this can be, or mostly all of this can be commercial, and then we're just simply going to zone residential around it. So I'm just going to try and zone a few shops. I'm going to try to make this as organic and natural looking as possible. I do not want to make big clusters, so I'm going to leave a few empty areas. For example, these two blocks over here. But I also want to add the look of density, namely because we need some residents into this area, so we can boost our population and buy some more additional tiles. Okay, so I think this is a nice start for commercial, and now let's move on to residential. And I think I want to follow the exact same strategy. We are just going to mix in a bit of residential and try to make a big cluster over here at the center, and then just spread out a bit of zoning to the sides. And I even think I want to mix in some residential right next to the commercial, because you usually see this in a lot of small towns. They don't have a lot of planning in them, and that's kind of the effect that I'm trying to replicate here. I am also trying to vary the sizes of the zoning spaces. So for example, here we have a 3-long house, or a 3-long zoning space, and in these little rows we only have 2 long zoning spaces. I think this is going to help adding a bit of structure to the layout itself, because even though it doesn't follow a normal grid, by adding similar buildings close to each other, I think it's going to give out a false sense of order that is going to make it look a bit neater than if I just took out this brush and zoned everything with residential. We'll see. By following this logic, this neighborhood over here can also be only 2-block long houses. So for example, here we have room for more, but for the sake of symmetry, I'm just going to place 2-block long zoning spaces. And then on certain rows, for example this one, we can have those big 4x4 houses that will belong to the people who have money to buy a bigger land or bigger size terrain. And we can even do that in here, but I'm gonna separate the houses a bit more to establish that look that I've told you about, of having a less dense zoning over here, so we can add a few houses here and there, with a lot more privacy and a lot more empty spaces between them. Before continuing the zoning of this area, perhaps it will help to define some locations for leisure. That's something that we haven't done yet. So I think we can set this area into a park area because it's very central. So I can simply remove this commercial here. And let's see, perhaps a large, no, this is too big, so perhaps a small playground over here. Okay, yeah, that suits the terrain. We can even delete the housing here. And we can place a small shop here, just to complement it. And we should also put a small plaza. And I think right next to these services, the police and fire station is going to be an adequate place for it. So I'm gonna put it right here. Let's see how it looks like. Okay, let me adjust the terrain a bit better because it doesn't look that well. Okay, much more acceptable. And we can delete this zoning and also over here because it's going to mess up the terrain. So we're just going to leave it at that, and perhaps this whole thing can disappear as well. Okay guys, so we have just zoned the central part of the village. Before zoning out the other parts of the mountain, I think we can provide a bit of electricity to this area and also unpause the simulation, let everything develop while we zone the other parts. So that's what we are going to do. I am going to bring a segment of power all the way until here. Let me make sure I do not block any zoning spaces. So I think placing a segment of power line in this road is going to be fine. We also have power generating from these wind turbines. That's going to be connected to the main city pretty soon. But for the time being, I think that's going to be fine. We already have water in this entire location. So let's just unpause the simulation and see how this whole thing develops. Okay guys, so the first buildings of the new town are now finally being developed, and I think it's finally time for us to start activating these services because the demand is going to happen pretty soon, so we might go as well and activate them all of a sudden. So now the cemetery, yeah, there we go. And now while we let these things develop, we still have a lot of zoned area that needs to grow. We can go and start planning out this little area, and it seems that we have quite a bit of a problem. Well, not a big one, but a small one, which is this thing, the disaster response unit actually has a pretty wide noise pollution radius, as you can see by the orange circle. So we need to make sure that nothing gets zoned in. So I can already see that this area over here to the bottom side is not going to be a problem because it's outside the radius. I will need not to zone anything over here in this road, at least not residential. I do have, however, a little block over here that I was planning to zone in a bit of residential, but we'll have to adjust this layout because that's not going to be possible. So since we are not going to have anything here, I'm just going to convert this into a simple road. Or perhaps we can delete it altogether, just like this. Another pretty big thing that we can start doing is actually start planning out this part of the layout, because as I've said on the previous video, I want to connect this road with this main highway somewhere along here. And I also think we can adjust this little train track, because I don't really like the direction that it has. It's a natural organic shape, but it does not fit with either this curve here nor this highway over here. So we can actually modify it and also add a secondary passenger train station. So that's what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna make a very basic and very modest road network, a road infrastructure, And perhaps we can start with this train line, so let's do it. Okay, so first thing, now the simulation is paused, we can start deleting this thing. Let's actually delete all of these segments. And let's see, how will I want my train track to look like? Perhaps I will make it parallel to the highway. So something like this, perhaps over here it's fine. And now over here we can bend it. So let's make sure we make a very smooth curve. So something like this, pretty cool. No interference with this highway whatsoever. And now we need to connect it with this segment. And let's see, how can we do this? And maybe if I bring the rail all the way over here in a straight line, and now we can just slowly curve it to meet this segment. So something like this perhaps. Okay, I think that's acceptable. Now we can make our passenger train station over here. And for that I think we can either place it here or over here. To be far away enough from this station, I think I'm gonna place it here. So for that we need to make an auxiliary road. So a segment here. It actually needs to be a bit closer. Yeah, this is it. So now we can simply delete the segment and place it right here. This should be great. And I think a normal train station is going to be enough to cover this area. And now in order to connect it to the main layout, I think I'm gonna make a segment here, parallel to the train line. I'm gonna do the same over here and I'm gonna curve it along this line, perfect. Now I'm simply going to connect the avenue directly to the curve itself, like this. Okay, cool. That should be okay for now. In order to make it easier to connect the roads on this side to the roads that are going to be placed on this side, I think we should elevate this railroad. So that's something that I'm going to do right now. I'm actually going to delete everything that we have built so far. Let me just make a couple of guidelines to know where the main nodes are. So they're going to be here. And another node over here. And we can start elevating the railroad. I think I'm gonna go a full 4 blocks. Bring it all the way here. Perhaps we can make this elevation a bit better and a bit smoother. So let me make the elevation step all the way to the minimum. Raise it over here. And raise it again over there. Make a little connection here, and now we can bring the entire thing all the way over here. So something like this. And now we can start bending. I think I'm gonna bend it all the way until here, so I'm gonna make a quick guide. Now we can delete this entire curve. So in order to make this curve, I think I'm gonna get the freeform track. And I am simply going to make a segment that is going to connect here, and I'm going to raise the elevation step by 1, and now I can simply connect it with this area, and that should be a smooth enough curve. Yeah, there we go, it works for me. So we can simply delete these guides and we can continue the avenue all the way over here. Okay. Better. Now we can figure out the way of connecting this avenue, or this highway should I say, to both sides of it. Let's see, how can we do this? I think I'm gonna try something different. I am going to delete this entire segment and I'm going to sink it a little bit. So perhaps I can grab this elevation step and I can make a hole here. Okay, something like this. And now I think I'm gonna make, you know what, I think this can even go a bit lower. So let's try it. And now I want to make a roundabout on this pit, and I want to make the highway go over it. I even think I want to go for a oval roundabout design, but I don't want it to go perpendicular, so I think I'm going to angle it quite a bit. So I think I need to modify the terrain a bit further. Okay, let's see if I can do this. I am going to make a little square to start off. Now I want to go at about a 45-degree angle. So over here, this is the direction that I want my roundabout to have. So let's cut it at about not halfway, but one block above halfway. So here, same on both sides. Make sure it's symmetrical. And we can start making some curves now. So something like this. Okay, delete this little guideline. And now just connect everything. And I think this is pretty central. Okay, so now that the roundabout is complete, we can start making the highway go over it. So I'm gonna extend this part all over here, and we can do the same. I don't think this was straight. Okay, there we go, now it is. And I think I will try to make a bridge over here perhaps. So something like this. Let me disable the road guidelines for this. Okay. Unfortunately, the pillars are not going to be aligned, or at least perfectly. But we'll see how it looks like, and then we'll make some adjustments if necessary. So now we can just connect it here, and same thing here. And I even think this was a bit too elevated. Let's try this again. Okay, so make it go down a little bit. And now the slope should be much smoother. Perfect. You know what? I think I'm gonna scratch this roundabout idea. I think I have a better solution for it. So let me see if I can try to represent it. Okay fellas, so I ended up going for a much simpler layout. I figured out perhaps we're not going to have a lot of traffic in this junction because we already have an off point here and several off points over here, so I don't know, let's just try this out with a simple layout and see how it handles traffic. Right now I think I just want to connect this thing to this thing over here and also this point to this avenue, and perhaps I should change the way this intersection is made because we have a very little gap between an on-ramp and also a off-ramp. So let me try and make these few adjustments. First and foremost, I want to adjust this. So I think I will want to make an organic road that goes along this line and eventually connects here. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna try and make a point here. And now let's make a very simple slope. Try to connect it here, very organic. Now we'll simply go along and connect it here. Something like this. You can even bring it up at about here, and perhaps the slope is not going to be very aggressive. I think we are going to be fine. Let's try it out. Okay, let's grab the normal road, enable all of the guidelines to make sure we are following the same direction of the road. Make the first click, and now we can disable everything and build from here and see how it works. Okay, not bad, but I think I want to make this a bit interesting, so I'm gonna drag this road a bit further ahead. Okay, better. Let me just smoothen everything out, make it look more organic and more natural. And now let me just try and remodel this. The curve is very tight here because we are going under the highway itself and connecting this thing. But perhaps we can make a few adjustments that make it look even better. Let's check it out. Okay, better. So we've managed to increase the gap between the off-ramp and the on-ramp, so this should work out a bit better. Now we just need to make a connection here. And for that I think I'll just make a little roundabout over here. And let's see how everything turns out. I still don't know how I will want to connect this in the future, but for the time being we can just keep it like this. Let me just upgrade this segment. Okay, now we can resume the simulation and see if this thing actually helps out with traffic. But now that we have made this connection, now we can proceed with the expansion of the zoning. Okay guys, so I'll just let the game run for a while. Because we had such a big demand for commercial, I ended up zoning a few blocks over here. This area is not adequate for residential because of the noise pollution generated by the disaster response unit, but is definitely suitable for commercial. I've also went on to this little road here, and I've converted some of the residential zones into commercial zones as well, because this road is being used by cars who want to travel from this side to this side over here. So placing a few commercial stores over here was adequate. I've also zoned in a few residential here, but because we don't have a lot of demand for residential, I'm not gonna zone any more residential for the time being. I can also show you the developments on this little highway, on this interchange that we've made a while ago. It's working pretty much fine. We still do not have a lot of residential here, but for the time being it's working as intended. As I have predicted, there's not a lot of traffic here. Overall, this area is taking shape. It's looking exactly as I thought it would look. There are a few glitches here and there, for example in these situations where the construction has made quite a few glitches in the terrain, but I think we can cover them up with trees, or if necessary we can simply dezone them. Overall, this area looks very friendly, and I think it's going to look even better when it is fully complete. Okay, so the RCI demand has adjusted quite a bit, and it's now demanding for a bit more residents, so we can proceed with the zoning of residential. Now the thing that we're missing is this little layout, so we can zone a few houses here. They are not going to have an easy access to leisure, but that's okay because this is supposed to be an old town, so these are going to be poor citizens. So I'm just making quite an array of houses, 2 long block zoning spaces, and let's see what comes out of this. Let's zone everything all the way until here. Okay, that should be fine. Perhaps we can even add a few more houses on this hill and another one here. Okay, that should be cool for the time being. I also want to add a bit of houses to this little access point, so let's put a couple of houses here in this little hill and hope that they look good. I gotta be careful with what I put over here because this thing is covered by the noise pollution created by the wind turbines, so I gotta think about this. In the meanwhile, I can provide water to these buildings that I have just placed. And I can also start placing a few buildings over here. And again, I cannot place anything in this road, so perhaps it can just be a small access point to the houses that are going to be placed here. Perhaps I can delete this whole thing and simply connect the road directly. I also want to put some houses along this road, so perhaps we can modify the terrain a little bit to accomplish this goal. So let's add a bit of zoning spaces by widening the terrain. Let me upgrade this whole segment of roads to update the zonable tiles. And now let's upgrade them back to dirt roads. And there we go. Now we can simply place the houses. But before I place anything, perhaps I want to connect this road with this road over here on top. So let's actually try and do that. Let's see how the slope looks. Okay, that's a bit awkward. Let's try and do this in another way. Again, let's modify the terrain. Okay, much better. Now let's add a few buildings to this location. And yes, I know they will require some water. We will take care of that in a moment. Okay fellas, so before wrapping up this video, there's a couple of things that I want to do. First and foremost, I want to make a bypass on the train station, which is something that I forgot when I placed it. So I want to make something similar to what I've done here, so that trains can go through the station without not going through the station itself. I want to modify the interchange of this highway. As you can see here, it's not working quite well as intended, so there's quite of a traffic jam, which is created by this little merge over here, so perhaps we can adjust it. And finally, I want to add some vegetation to this hill. So I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna meet you in a moment to wrap up the video. But that's going to be it for today, guys. We have managed to do everything I had in mind for this video. We have zoned the village and also decorated with some trees. And so this project is almost complete. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you again on the next one. Thank you so much for watching, have a good one, and as always, have fun!